Greetings and hello. My name is Sean, also known as Rob Hagen in certain circles, and this is day 12 of my 2020 VEDA challenge. VEDA being vlogging every day in the month of April. So it's a Sunday. I am relaxing a little bit. I've been relaxing. Gonna go to work in a couple hours, and so I've eaten, I've drank, had a decent day. Went out for a walk. Took the time also to pick up some stuff from the grocery store. I ended up going through a few things faster than I expected, and I want to make sure I have some stuff in the house for later in the week. Um, and you know, dealt with a little bit of what's kind of become a constant these days of missing my friends and people I care about. Not much more can be said about that. I stared at the walls and ceiling for a while, knowing that it's not really much more I can do about that. I can't snap my fingers and make all of this go away. Not that I'd want to. Not unless I could snap my fingers and bring back all the people who've been hurt by it, and make sure it doesn't happen again. But I don't live in a movie, and I don't live in fiction. Sorry, got a little down there for a minute. So part of my thing has been I've been trying to figure out what I'm going to talk about today. Um, I had a I have a several rants in me about certain subjects, and those tend to come out when I'm walking somewhere. If I'm walking to work or I'm walking to the supermarket and I'm by myself, I tend to monologue a little bit, tend to think about things, tend to vocalize my thoughts, which kind of puts them in perspective. It's not necessarily a healthy habit, but it's one I've had for a very long time, and I've learned to moderate it and not dwell upon it so much, but I do it. And one of the things I was sort of talking to myself about was villainy in fiction. And I don't know exactly the point I was making when I was talking about it to myself earlier in the day, and been sitting here trying to figure out and recapture that, and it's been hard. Primarily because I think villains are important. I think you need them in a story, even if they're not out and out monsters or real bad guys. They're misguided. You do need them. They serve the purpose of the antagonist. They help drive a story forward. But on the same hand, I have felt that we have had a very big decline in quality of villains in fiction. Comic books, especially, wherein very often you've seen in modern comics, the villains is the hero. And something about that personally doesn't sit right with me. There is supposed to be an aspect of you could agree with certain things that the villain says. It's supposed to be part of the villain's charm, that perhaps he has some good ideas, but how he goes about them are to achieve them are not acceptable. And sometimes you can even agree with the means he's doing it because you believe like him in that thing. But then you should ask questions about yourself, because you shouldn't be doing some awful things. Gonna veer into some stuff I don't want to really go into that's not relevant to this particular subject, but villains and baddies. When it comes to my writing, I like bad guys. Very often, when I've planned out a tabletop game, I tend to have a big bad. I tend to follow that formula. I tend to have a villain. Now, sometimes the villain is something that doesn't come in until partway through the story. Sometimes the earlier antagonists are working. Sometimes they're not. Maybe you can have lots of different levels of villainy. And I I've done that for a number of different campaigns. Sometimes my villains are articulate. Sometimes they're very elaborate and thought out plans. Other times they're forces of nature. And I've done that in several different games and genres. Sometimes I've played the villain in other people's games. That was a particularly fun one. About, I want to say, 6, 7, probably about 8, 9 years ago. Maybe almost 10 at this point. A friend of mine was running a freeform fantasy game. I say freeform in that we didn't really have rules and structure to how things worked. There's nothing written down. It was very much so him having a basic story and a few NPCs in his head and describing them, and then we responded. There was dice rolled occasionally when we wanted to determine things and outcomes and have a little bit of randomness to it. But for the most part, it was us doing a cooperative story. So he asked me if I could play the bad guy, as in the opposition for the other players. And so I was like, okay. I mean, I have a rule when it comes to villainy. If you ask me to play a bad guy, I need to know I'm playing the bad guy. It's simple, but I've had situations where people have asked me to help, and they put me in the bad guy role, like, this is not what you asked me to do. Or they have a problem, it's like, you asked me to be the bad guy. But no, you asked me to be the bad guy. Anyway, back to that. So I played this villain. He was called the Chimera. He had his agenda. He was part of a evil conquering empire that was conquering this particular continent and had come to this last kingdom that was resisting, and the players were on the side of that kingdom. And I was the bad guy. I didn't pull punches. I will say honestly, I did metagame a little bit, in so much that I knew what my friends' behavior as their characters almost invariably were, and I honestly could predict what they were going to do. And mind you, I had my own plots to worry about. I had people who were my enemies, my bad guys to worry about, even if I was the bad guy for the other players. And I did a couple of things in that particular game that I feel were very villainous, but they were villainous. They were supposed to be. For example, we had a recurring NPC in a lot of our games who was like this master thief, crime boss type person that the players almost invariably fell in with and recruited as an ally. Sometimes the version of the character was played by one of the players, sometimes it was just an NPC. It was a character and character type we had in our games. And turns out his headquarters was in a city that my army conquered. So the players were with him, and they were like, all right, we're going to form a resistance, and we're going to fight against these conquerors. What did I do? I enforced peace. I didn't let my men do horrible things to the people. If crimes were broken, I punished everyone equally and fairly. I was not there, as I said in character. I'm not here to crush you. I'm here to incorporate you into the empire. I do not wish to disrupt your lives. I wish your lives to go on and know that all that's changing is who you send your taxes to. I'm not here to radically change your lives. And it worked. Because the game master had one of the players to get out of this mode of, well, we can beat him here. If we beat him, we win. Wanted them to understand that there was a bigger plot going on, that what was going on was leading up to something bigger, but they were getting caught up in the opposing me. So he had the NPC start to do more extreme things. And How did I react to it? I said, very well. I'll rebuild the buildings you blew up. I will compensate the people that you killed in killing my men. Terrorist actions and all resistance. It drove the players crazy. It drove the NPC crazy because my game was like, okay, I see what you're doing here. And that character ended up going from sort of noble and criminal but honorable to willing to do awful things to try and take me down or take down those that worked under me. And the players actually said, we can't go along with that. But we have to. It's the only way. It's like, yeah, but you're doing his work for him. And that's what happened. Similar story happened with that. There was an NPC general who was actually my opponent for a particular fight. And he was he had been characterized as one of those who led from the front. His men all loved him because he led from the front. He fought on the front lines with him. I said, well, how do I turn that strength into a weakness? I got deviously and clever. I said, fine, you want to fight on the field? I'm going to make sure everyone around you doesn't want to be around you. What do you mean? I target all of his men, but not him. What? I want to kill everyone around him, but not him. So no bombardments, just shoot his men. Kill them. Wherever he is, make his men suffer. So turn that strength into a weakness. Now, I had a role for that. I was told, you don't just get that. And I did. I came close to losing it. But in the end, it worked. And this character who was supposed to be a pain in my ass, and the players were potentially supposed to help, and they tried. Lord knows that they tried. It didn't work out. I captured him. Tried to recruit him, actually. It was cool. And I've gone on a whole tangent about how me playing a villain. But villains should be villains. And that's how I played my character. Side note, there was a lot more going on in that particular game. And I ended up not being nearly as... I was a villain with a purpose. I was a villain by necessity. And unfortunately, that campaign fell apart because one of the players just said, I don't want anything to do with it. And yeah, it's a story for another day. He remains one of my favorite characters ever played, to Chimera. He was... I wish I could recreate him in a game I was running, but there's just an energy that's different when you're running a story versus being a player and doing that. And I've enjoyed doing that. So, sorry if it... Like I said, I have been spending most of the day trying to figure out how to recreate that little discussion I had with myself earlier, and it didn't work out. So now you got a story about me and one of my attempts at playing a villain. I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not a natural villain. I like being the hero. I like being part of the good guys. Just how I am. But when I do play a villain, I play a villain. Anyway, this video's gone on long enough today. We just keep breaking them records, don't we? So anyway, I hope that you are doing well, and I hope that you're feeling well. And probably we'll see what else we go on to later in the week. Might get that reading idea off the ground. Might do a couple other things. That said, I will be seeing you, my friends.